for stopping by GF Explorers. Today I am making shallot butter herb pork chops. Pork chops are good, but let's be clear, they're pretty boring most of the time. I mean, you put some barbecue sauce on them, maybe another glaze. So I'm always looking for ways to make pork chops really shine and be that meal that your family goes, oh my God, this is great, let's have this again. This is that pork chop. Rosemary, thyme, butter, or earth balance because it's dairy free. Shallots, it's going to be amazing. Really easy to do. Breakdown of the recipe is first we're going to make a shallot butter, then we're going to make an herbed olive oil sauce. We're going to put it on the pork chops, we're going to cook them, they're going to be done, boom. It's going to be easy. So the first thing I'm going to do is the shallot butter. I have diced about 2 teaspoons of shallot, and I have some zest of a lemon here, and I have some earth balance that's been softening in this bowl. So I'm going to add all those together. And as we go through it, the earth balance is going to soften some more as we cook the pork chops, so don't worry about it. It does not need to be melted. It needs to be softened because it's going to go on the pork chop at the end when it comes off of the stove and melt on there. And oh, it's just going to be a beautiful presentation and a beautiful flavor. Okay, so I've got this pretty well mixed. I'm going to leave it sit here. Oh, do not leave the bowl, Mr. Shallot. Back in the bowl. Okay, fine. Don't go in the bowl. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna leave that over here to the side. And now the next thing we're gonna do is make our herb and olive oil mixture. Also has some garlic in it, so it's an herb and garlic. I've got about a tablespoon of olive oil in the bowl, and I've rosemary, thyme, chive, and garlic. Now, normally I use fresh of all the herbs in this recipe, but the grocery store was out of fresh chives, so I used dried, and in the recipe there'll be the conversion fresh to dried, but it's about 1/3. So if you're using a tablespoon of fresh herbs, you're going to want to use a teaspoon of dried herbs. So I'm going to mix this together. I think I'm going to add a little, hang on, I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. And that's, a recipe, as I always say, is a guideline. So I started with a tablespoon of olive oil, and it just didn't feel like it was enough, so I'm going to add some more in here. Feel free to do that. You don't want it too runny, but you want it to really mix well with the herbs and garlic. Okay, so that's done. We get this out of the way. Before I started all this, I pretty well seasoned the pork chops on both sides with kosher salt and pepper and brought them to room temperature, so they are ready to go. I'm going to take this herb and olive oil blend and I'm going to put it over one side. I'm going to put a little bit on each and then spread it around one side of each pork chop. A little more there, a little more there. Okay, I'm going to spread it with the back of the spoon all over the one side. These guys are overlapping, so there we go. Get that off of the spoon there. The flavor, oh, the smells. Oh, I can't wait to eat these pork chops. They're going to be so good. Okay, that is pretty well distributed. So now I'm going to heat a cast iron skillet at about medium high with some sunflower oil, and we're going to get these puppies into, well, they're not really puppies, they're pork chops, into the skillet. Now, a note about your pork chops. My goal was to get like a medium thick pork chop, but of course I couldn't get a medium thick pork chop from the store, so we got these really, really thin ones. These will work just fine. We just have to be a little bit more careful when we're cooking them so we don't overcook them. I really don't think this would work with a thick pork chop, but if you want to try it, you're going to go through the process on the stove where we sear it, and at that point we cook the rest on the stove, and instead of that I would put them in the oven to finish if you've got a really thick pork chop. I have a very hot pan of oil, so the pork chops are going in. You hear that sizzle? That's what you want to hear. Okay, they are going herb side up, and hopefully these all fit. These are pretty wide. Okay, you want to make sure they're a flat layer. I got them in. They're in. They're all good. Okay. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit because the temperature just dropped because I put cold pork chops in the pan. So you're going to want to let them sit for 3 to 4 minutes. Do not touch them on medium to high, somewhere in the middle there, probably closer to high. Keep an eye on it. You'll know when you need to turn your heat down because they'll just be sizzling way too much. And once they get to that point, I'm going to cook them on medium until they're done, and it's that easy. The chops have been cooking about 3 to 4 minutes, and you can see the color or the doneness is starting to wrap around the sides of the pork chop. That's your signal to turn it down to medium and cook until they are done. If this was a little bit thicker chop, I'd put a probe thermometer in there and cook to 155, but since they're so thin, we're just going to have to eyeball it. When they look done, and right now, so you can tell they're squishy in the middle. Obviously, they're not going to be red anymore, and they're not going to be squishy. They're going to have much more pushback. Okay, so now it's time for the shallot butter. I'm going to put a little bit of butter on each one and kind of mush it in so it starts to melt. This is going to add just another layer of flavor, of deliciousness, earth balance and shallot, and a little bit of lemon zest. Oh, this is going to be so good. Okay, I'm going to add... This is the one I'm eating, so I'm adding even more to it. Oh my goodness. And now I'm going to garnish with some parsley. You could garnish with some more herbs, but we got enough herb on here, so I think I'm just going to go with parsley. A very herbaceous pork chop. Knife, what, fork, knife, no, knife, fork. I'm going in. Oh my goodness. These smell so good. Okay, here we go. Oh, look at that color on it. Look at that color. Oh my goodness, the flavor is amazing. All those herbs, the lemon, the butter, the shallot, you taste everything. And of course, you taste the pork, which is fabulous. I gotta have another piece. And it's so tender. Pork, I'm not gonna lie, I grew up in the 70s, and in the 70s, I think pork was different because I used to love it, and it was very tender and flavorful and juicy. And lately, last 15, 20 years, I don't think pork is quite like that. But this reminds me of the pork I loved when I was a kid. Oh, so delicious and flavorful. I gotta keep eating, so I gotta go. Thank you so much for watching. A link to the full recipe will be in the description below. And you can find this recipe and so much more at gfexplorers.com. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. That helps a lot. And if you really like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the enable notifications so you know when a new video comes out, which is once a week. And until next time, happy eating.